out of all of the case tournaments that have come and gone in terms of information, I think this is the first time that I've seen Morphtronic FTK actually do something in current format. You guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. The first case tournament we're looking at here was out of Chicago for the first weekend here, which, of course, you had triple Spright. Now, all of these Spright variants ended up being completely different. We're going to take a look at the Paleo version of the deck here in a second, which definitely caught my interest. We also had an Ignister in Top Cut. We had Telephon FTK, baby. You love to see it. And then we also had Drytron, Sword Soul, and Dragon Link. But for like your more interesting thing here, players aren't prepared for something like Telephon FTK to come out of the woodwork here, take down a dominating position at a case tournament here, and you're just going to be kind of left in that position where you're just like, oh, you know, like, I don't know, I can't believe it. You look massively dumbfounded around everything that's happened. So that's kind of the same situation we saw. We're going to pass on over to deck list here. All right, the first interesting list out of this event was none other than we played the Swappy Frog pack. This is basically just a time capsule from many years back here, where you see that, oh, we can take advantage of our Swap Frog package. You know, all 30 of our trap cards here. I mean, Needlebug's Nest facilitates additional huge dumping options here for all of our Paleo cards. And of course, you know, set up a gigantic Spright, you know, gigantic elf, deck thin off all of our frogs. Sure, it's literally just free real estate out here for what you want to see this deck do. And of course, just two totally awesomes. A simple 1-2 toads should be enough to handle pretty much every single point of every situation that you might necessarily find yourself in. So good stuff to seeing this deck did have a very decent turnover success rate for the overall event. Not too bad. Yeah, there's nothing else really too crazy to say about this. Paleo just does exactly what Paleo wants to do about 95% of the time. Next up here is Ignister. Oh boy, you know, Ignister did get circular for, you know, the time constraint, or for the new set, but we're not even playing the Mathmech package in this deck. While the Mathmech package might make this deck look a whole lot more easier to play, playing the deck in the old basic style works out too. 7 cards in the main deck. I know we've also seen Bosch have success with like the Mystic Mind variant of this deck, where you basically detour your opponent, you know, floodgate them out of the game and just go, oh, haha, you don't really get the chance to kind of come back from that sort of thing. So when you're overall looking at the construction of something like this here, yeah, it's still the same basic game plan. A lot of current decks will have an issue with the arrival at Ignister, but the interesting thing is people are now playing Underworld Goddess a lot more within their main decks in order to kind of counteract this little creation. So the more interesting things that you know for 500 here. And the last deck we have here is, yes, we have Telephon FTK. So how does this deck work? Well, you summon the Morphtronic Telephon, attack position, blah, 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 special the Morphtronic monster graveyard with equal level of the result you rolled. Cannon Soldier, ping your opponent for 500. Cool thing is, if they end up doing something to the Cannon Soldier and you can't win the game, you can just gain infinite life points instead, man. Because you're going to gain life points equal to the result times 100. So it's just an infinite cycle of OTKing. But then you just got to establish 2 Telephons and then the Cannon Soldier, and you're good to win the game. Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm very happy to see out here that Cannon Soldier did have a pretty big, cool, successful rate out of, you know, this case tournament, showing the world that, hey, the FTK is, in fact, doable. Now, we're going to pass on over to Refined Gaming's case tournament. This case tournament looks a little bit more what you would expect for early results here. Yeah, triple tier elements storming through the main structure of this tournament, which, whoo-wee, man, that's a lot of tier. And then, of course, we had 2 Mathmechs. Very early on, a lot of players looked at Mathmech as a deck, and they were definitely taken back by the overall power that this deck had. And I know if you're not really prepared for your Mathmech matchup, you will just get smashed into the ground by just the power of the deck. That's just literally how it works, unfortunately. We also had a Sword Soul, a Punk Adventure deck, so Punk Adventure Synchro still continue on, and only one Spright deck within this top cut, which when you kind of handle back and you look at some of these 50-60 man events, and you see something like, you know, Spright having a lower representations, because players want to try out some very, very different things and have fun with them overall. We're going to pass on over to the deck list now from this event. All right, the first we have here is Mathmech. Yay, double super factorial and one induction. And we're playing the one equation. So the one equation and some number of 1 to 2 superfactorial has pretty much been your norm at this point. It doesn't really change, to be honest with you. And of course, you got to give it up for circular. This is the reason why a deck like this gets the chance to be successful. And of course, you know, you also get access to Heat Soul here. Literally all of the pieces have kind of lined up for you to see success with something like this in the current format, because hey man, you know, toolboxing options, once again, circular is full 1 card, you know, OTK your opponent, and then, you know, also Final Sigma ends up being totally optional, by the way. There are just a lot of these builds out here that don't even care about playing Final Sigma in terms of doing it. It's just kind of like the extra little icing on the cake for the overall turnover for what you want to see for this. So not too darn bad overall. Next up here was our Sword Soul variant out of this. Holy floodgate, Batman. You want to talk about detouring the opponent here to make sure that you have a chance to win the game. That's kind of what you got to do with Sword Soul right now. I hate to be that guy, but you kind of got to go back to relying on Mystic Minds and Dark Rule and No Mores, because you're too fair in terms of a deck right now, you know. And it really sucks to say that, because, you know, Sword Soul on paper was a very good deck through Nationals. It's the reason why it had the chance to do things, but it was one of the, it's always been too fair in what it does. You know, meanwhile, Spright opens up, you know, 5 cards in hand, and you're like, gas, 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 baby. You know, you got the initial D theme playing the entire time in the background while you're playing that deck. That's kind of the experience I get out of seeing that deck, you know, get the chance to play. So overall, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Sword Soul experience right now. We also have Spright here. Okay, so what does this Spright bring to the table? It's kind of interesting. Double talents in the main deck is fine. I've seen a lot of variants at this point that kind of take a step back here and go, all right, you know, 3 talents is the way to go. This build is a lot more heavy on like the anti-cards per se. Like you have droplets and you have the crossout designators in here. A lot of builds are subconsciously right now starting to make the decision between the one of the other of these. Actually, most builds are just going with Dark Rule and No More of a droplet. You can't really afford the heavy-winded cost of droplet. It's kind of like my problem with the card is, in a deck where you can generate a whole bunch of free advantage off of cards, you know, while the Spright package can do that, you kind of need to make sure that you have enough pieces to go. Because while your Frog package is free advantage, you still need to use that advantage to make your power plays, and you can't really afford to lose it to a droplet. And then next up here is our first Spright deck. We got triple Galaxy Cyclone down here. But very early on, this was fine. I think most players now that are looking at Galaxy Cyclone as an option tree here, it's definitely been cut off a lot less. 3 feels just too heavy. Of course, I think every Spright list at this point is definitely giving some super heavy consideration to this. You also see that we do have a very, very small Albaz package in here, because honestly, I know people look at the Albaz package like, you know, Robbie, it's too slow. It's not the way to go with it. I mean, Branded Fusion doesn't care, man. Like, you get basically a free mill off into any one of your cards, and you get to go ahead and move on along with your day. All right, you're locked into Fusion. Who cares, right? Your whole deck is Fusion Summon anyway, except for, you know, the occasional one of these two. So I think the branded package in this deck is fine for what you want to do. If not, you're going to go for like the full danger package here. And then last list here is a little bit more streamlined here. We have the Fusion sub in here, which you already know, having this card act as Poly is so good. And of course, you've got, really, we're playing 1 Crime, 2 Mana Noise, and 2 Soul. Like, that feels a little bit heavier. We're still citing for Yield Sword Soul, even though that matchup should be really good. See, we're playing Ultimate Slayer here, but we're not doing the Evil Twin package. We're just dedicating towards I guess, the option trees that we've already got established. That's kind of interesting. I guess you can't really fit in something like the Evil Twin in here. I guess you chose to play the Underworld Goddess instead, which is fine. Like, there's not a big issue with that at the end of the day. Just your options feel a little bit more weird overall. So that is your double-header regional breakdown. Case tournament breakdown. Holy moly info. Guys, please leave a comment down below. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button. I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.